Hey guys, and welcome back to another one of my Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. review videos, and today we're going to be talking the 10th episode of the 6th season of the Untitled Leap. But oh boy, I've got a lot of bullet points over here that I want to discuss on this video. I don't want to make it so long. I mean, it's going to end up being a little bit over the usual 15 to 16 minutes. Hopefully I'm going to be able to reduce that in editing, but I do apologize in advance just in case it was kind of longer than that. But yeah, because I just stated, we've got a lot to talk about on this video. Let's get started, and right away. So this episode kind of revealed a lot, kind of explained a lot. This guy is not Coulson, but he's got a part of Coulson. This guy is a doppelganger of Coulson, created when Coulson tried to seal the fear rift, or what we so far did think was a fear rift. And there's a lot of funny moments on this episode, including the fact that Fitz is still jealous of his original. You do get that feeling when Deke tells him the other you did think this was a fear dimension, and he responds,
"Yo, he wasn't the smart one."
But yeah, there's a lot more on this episode. There is the fact that a lot that we've been talking about has been confirmed. I was a little bit off on the Coulson part. I always thought this was the body of Coulson. Sarge was occupying it, but apparently this has pieces of Coulson, different pieces, not the body. So let us get started with the variations to this part, the variations to our theory about this guy being Coulson. So one, the guy in there is actually Sarge. This is not his form, this is not his body. He's not just a look-alike, he is one of the bad guys. Well, he was one of the bad guys until he occupied this body and started forgetting everything about himself and kind of letting this guy take over, kind of letting the memories of Coulson take over. But that brings us to 2, the memories of Coulson is the part that's in there. He's got memories of Coulson, Daisy, May, and whatnot, and he's been blaming Azov for their death because he believes that she killed them. She never did. He was in love with her. She was in love with him. That much is explained by the end of the episode, and that much is going to take over Sarge later on in the events of the season. 3. Sarge is Pachakutik. So yeah, the person he's been warning against since the beginning of the season, the person that he spoke about early on in the events of the season while talking to May, that's pretty much him. 4. While we thought that the creator is Azov, she is possibly still the creator, but she is not Pachakutik, and he did state that Pachakutik will be the end of everything. Now, he was not wrong about that because so far Azov seems to be powerful enough to destroy everything, to be the end of everything as we know it, but at the same time, it does seem like he is more powerful. She does make that clear on this episode.
The only thing powerful enough to defeat me is inside you, and you're afraid to let it out. For now, anyway.
That means that whatever is inside him, Pachakutik, that's definitely more powerful than Azov. But moving on, the episode starts with Sarge supposedly dead and on a stretcher, code red, alarm all over the place, all over the lighthouse. That's what we saw on the trailer last week, that's what we saw on the SDCC trailer. Fitz and Simmons get to see the guy for the first time, get to meet the guy for the first time while he's on that stretcher, so to them, he is Coulson. They need to be reminded by Mac at that point, he's not their guy. Now May is standing there frozen, no need to ask, I did it, I shot him. We've got Yo-Yo's, I understand she wanted to prevent future suffering, that's a reference to May in Bahrain becoming the cavalry. The rest of her statement, she's done it before and she's not the only one, that's possibly a double reference, one of which we're pretty much sure of, which is basically a reference to Yo-Yo earlier in the events of the season and in Keller's life, while the second, that's possibly a reference to her persistence during the events of the back half of Season 5 that they should let Coulson die to avoid the bleak future that they managed to live through firsthand in the first half of Season 5. Now we've got Jemma right in front of Sarge, he's still alive, she discusses that with Fitz like he's coming back stronger. I've already discussed this bit in my breakdown of the trailer of Season 5. We see Sarge dreaming, the figure we see over there, body, bone structure, silhouette, the whole 9 yards really, that's supposedly the love of his life, we know that's May in the end, but at the same time, it does look a lot like Ada, so looking at that, I think that was meant to be a reference to none other than Ada, possibly not, but I'm just saying. Now before we got to the end of the episode, realizing that was May, we're getting hints throughout the episode that that was actually May. Didn't think myself it was going to end up being revealed by the end of the episode, so I was planning to theorize on all of that, but apparently it ended up being revealed. Now, by the time Daisy is out of May's cell, Azov is gone, and then next thing that we watch is Yo-Yo going in, Yo-Yo trying to question May, and May telling her she doesn't remember anything. We know at that moment that Azov is gone. Now, long story short, we do realize how Azov does it, we do see that firsthand, but the other thing is, she started off by moving into Daviiz, while both him and Jacko were trying to get to her on board of the Lazy Comet, when they were trying to rescue Fitz Simmons. So, Azov makes her escape of the Lazy Comet by possessing Daviiz. She jumps into May's body, attacks Sarge, tries to kill Sarge, which we do realize wasn't really her objective later on. She's arrested, she's put in a cell, she jumps into the body of Diaz, jumps from there into the body of Piper, uses her access in order to steal that shard of the Shrike crystal, uses it as a compass in order to get to the monoliths, or in this case the orb that contains what remains of the monoliths, runs into Deke. He notices the shard, so she decides to take over his body, tries to access the vault where the orb is kept, fails at that, realizes the only one with access there is the director, so she jumps into Fitz's body, makes a scene as she walks in order not to be noticed as the body that's being occupied or possessed by Azov, and she just keeps body hopping from there until she gets to what she wants. She gets the director's body. But okay though, in the meanwhile we've got Deke and Fitz having a conversation, they try to work together. This time around they're on way better terms than when they had to do the same back on season 5. They're trying to make all the connections. Coulson interacted with the monoliths. That was the 12th episode of the 5th season, the 100th overall, when Coulson went down to try and seal the rift to the fear dimension, or what we thought back then was the fear dimension. They've got Azov, who's been searching for the monoliths, and we've got Sarge hunting her, which in a way all links them all together. But during that scene, we've got one of the funnier moments on this episode, saved by the Piper. Deke is still trying to impress Fitz, trying to justify why he started his company. We need money in order to do scientific research. He's trying so much and so hard, and then Piper walks in, and he's saved. But I gotta say, this version of Fitz, after all he's been through, after not having to go to the future, not being threatened by the end of the Earth as they knew it, like the case was with season 5, he's a lot more laid back. But another funny moment there was May's relaying of the events before and after the party.
Daviiz was hammered. You and Mac were obviously about to have sex. You asked what I remembered.
Now we've got a lot in the way of the Ghost Rider on this episode. We've got Sarge's wounds healing, we've got the mention by Fitz at the end of the episode that they have known someone pretty similar to that. An entity of a similar nature, one that doesn't have form, but that does occupy others, that being the Ghost Rider. You do need to remember over here as well that the Ghost Rider healed Robbie, saved Robbie, so all of it goes in the way of the Ghost Rider. Not necessarily that Sarge over here is occupied by a Ghost Rider, not necessarily that part of Coulson inside him is occupied by the Ghost Rider, but at the very least we do need to remember that Sarge and Azov originated from a realm of fear and darkness. We need to remember as well that Ghost Rider, or Robbie to be exact, did state that hell is relative. Many dimensions out there could be referred to as hell. So there's the possibility that all of this is leading into an appearance by the Ghost Rider by Robbie Reyes, and especially with a spin-off in the works, maybe on next season, maybe this season, not really sure, but there is also the possibility that they've all originated from the same dimension. All of them belong to that version of hell. But we've still got a lot of references on this earlier part of the episode, the Space Puff incident of 2019 that Daviiz speaks of. Let's talk for the events of episode 3 of the season, with him, Daisy, and Simmons getting all high on the alien puffies. We've got Piper possessed by Azov using the Shrike crystal as an old school compass. It feels like a bit of a reference to Fitz creating a similar compass back on season 4. The lockdown of the lighthouse feels like a double reference or a double callback. This is the second time that the lighthouse has been in lockdown. The first time was on season 5. That was episode 19, which is exactly the fourth to last episode of the season, just like episode 10 happens to be when it comes to season 6. But I said double reference or double callback. The second reference over here is locking down base due to team members being infected, in which case we're talking Daisy on season 3 being infected by Hive and the base being on lockdown. But moving on though to what followed the lockdown, sharing secrets is the way to go, a secret that one other person could confirm, that way they rule out team members from being possessed by Azov. Now Daisy anonymously sends part of her S.H.I.E.L.D. salary to someone every month. That happens to be Miranda Campbell, Lincoln's sister. And with everything I've been talking about on the SDCC trailer, a possible Hive connection, Lincoln seems to be a pretty good reference, him dying with Hive and all. But once again though, we're hit with the funny, Daviiz, I stole a pen, a space pen, he thought it was cool, aliens write things down, he did not know about that, that was pretty funny. I did love how for the longest time we expected her to be part of Deke, only to realize in the end she's already jumped into Fitz on his way to this meet. The majorly sad part though about this episode, about this scene, is that she kills Daviiz to make her point, I will kill. So rest in peace Daviiz, a very secondary character that we've all loved. I love how they managed to make Daviiz such a loved character, even though his appearances were very limited and since the very first season, yet we're all saddened by his death. But we've got the team finally piecing it together. They realize what she's really looking for because she's been looking for the monoliths. The monoliths have been destroyed, but there's a trace of them. There's the orb that ended up containing the fear dimension or the portal to the fear dimension. But we get an explanation of the third monolith. It's not about reality. The third monolith is about creation. Now, at the very least, this is the conclusion that Fitz comes to, and that's pretty much in line with what we've talked about before, the Mayan goddess, Ixchel. Now this is why this woman over here is named Ixchel, because Ixchel is pretty much spelled Ixchel. So yeah, the variation is pretty minimal over here when you consider that they didn't want to reveal who Ixchel is. But there's also an Ixchel in the comics. Ixchel in the comics is a goddess, and this one I've honestly never read about, but I did some research and I got to know that there were hosts involved, like human beings that had the highest levels of morality and ideals. But circling back to what I discussed before on a previous video, Ixchel is pretty much the Mayan goddess who's associated with birth, creation, death, and destruction. But we do get the explanation of who Sarge is, what he's got to do with Coulson. That very explanation I've talked about at the beginning of this video. He is Pachacootic, and the thing about Pachacootic is he who overturns space and time. That's exactly what happened with Coulson there. I mean, the monoliths copied him through space and time onto another planet at a different time, explaining the 100 years that he lived and the 100 years he's gonna live, and explaining stuff like why his left hand is not missing anymore. I mean, he's got a fully functional left hand, human left hand. But moving on and getting closer to the end of this video, Ixchel gets to her target, she achieves her objective, she gets to that orb, she's got that conversation going down with Sarge, the one that we watched and discussed from the SDCC trailer, so I'm not gonna dig much into that. At that point we realize that the woman he's been blaming, Ixchel, for the death of happens to be May, and the family that he's lost is pretty much S.H.I.E.L.D., Daisy in this case being the daughter. But that's still not all that gets revealed over here. The other reveal over here is the full objective, the full plan of Ixchel. Because at this point we realize that her full plan is to open a gateway to her realm of fear and darkness, her home, bring her people with no form to a world where they can take over all these people, all these bodies, finally have form, a gift for her kind. The Shrikes and the destruction, they were not about killing. I mean, killing was a byproduct, but her objective over there was to create billions of willing hosts for their kind to occupy and possess. But you can tell pretty much that Coulson is still in there, bits and pieces, fragments of Coulson. The Coulson in him is winning so far, the Coulson in him is rejecting Ixchel so far. The only thing powerful enough to defeat me is inside you, and you're afraid to let it out. That's pretty much a statement for what we're gonna see from Sarge over the next few episodes. You've gotta love how Sarge, during that moment, during that entire reveal, as we get it from Fitz on one end and Ixchel on the other end, is wearing a S.H.I.E.L.D. vest, kind of representative of the fact that Coulson is part of him. But finally, and this is our last point over here, Ixchel escapes in Yo-Yo's body at the end. The scene we see as Yo-Yo and Mac get on board of the Zephyr to fly away, that reminds us of the 12th episode of Season 5, where apparently Coulson got duplicated as well. Now back on that episode, you've got Daisy and May waiting there for the Zephyr to land, guns blazing, afraid of what's coming to them. Same or similar part of this soundtrack being used as well. The Quinjet over there brought back Daviiz, brought back Deke, and brought back Deathlock. Well, in this case, they're still afraid of a threat, but they're letting the threat leave, they're letting the threat get on board of the Zephyr, and unfortunately, out of the fear of the repercussions of any kind of choice that they might make at that moment, they cannot go guns blazing. But that having been said though, I hope I covered all my bases for this episode. I tried my best to make this video as short as possible, as brief as possible, so let me know in the comments down below what you thought of this episode, how you think things are gonna play out over the course of the next few episodes. Let me know as well if you did like this video by dropping it a much appreciated like, subscribing to this channel, and make sure while you're at it to enable notifications in order to get updates whenever I upload a new video, publish a new community post, or start a new live stream. But until the next time that you tune in for another one of my videos, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. or otherwise, thank you so much for tuning in to this review video, and have a great day.